Ooh, 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 ooh. Welcome to See Blissfully Lit podcast. I'm your host, Samie. I have a lovely guest here today, Miss Brooke Rankin. We actually met a few years ago in yoga teacher training, and we have been some synchronistic souls over the years. I would say kindred spirits. I don't know what you want to call it. Um, but she is here to share about her journey and we'll connect through some conscious conversations. And it is such a delight to have you here, Brooke. Could you start by telling our listeners a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, sure thing. So I am Brooke. I am a slightly chaotic soul on, I think, a secret mission to just learn joy, pleasure, and fun and play in life. I think I spent a lot of my early years very serious, and I think my mission on this earth is to really instill play and to bring back the joy of life for both myself and others. So yeah, I think that's why I'm here. I think that's what I'm doing. And I think that's a little bit about me. Of course, I have many twists and turns to my story, as all beautiful human journeys do. But yeah, I think that's me in a little tiny nutshell.
Thank you, Brooke. That's so beautiful. And really, it brings home the authenticity of who you are, what your being is, where you're going with your purpose. It's incredible to really see you flowing in your most natural state. So thank you. Thank you so much for introducing that. Uh, Before we dive in, because I've geared this podcast around magic, I want you to share what magic means to you and how it plays a role in your journey.
Oh, that's a big question. Um, I don't know. I think for me, a lot of magic comes from intuition and really listening into self. A lot of magic in life has come to me as I've just actually slowed down, sat in nature, sat with self, and really just kind of let a little bit of life just happen and magically flow. I know we have been using the buzzword of surrender and flow a lot lately. Um, but I think for me, magic really comes from those moments of slowing down, surrendering, and really letting life literally just show you how good that life can be for you rather than like forcing things or making things happen. And yeah, magic is beautiful. I think every day I see it in like the little synchronicities or the special souls that come into my life. So yeah, magic happens in even the simplest of moments.
Yeah, I would say magic delayed our recording just just moments ago.
Yeah, for sure.
You were out of flow state and magic was
Yeah,
like,
100%. As my Wi-Fi decided to chop out on me, which does happen because I am quite remote, but yeah, when we started recording, I definitely felt in a very strong, like nervous activated state system. So my nervous system didn't feel in flow and it didn't feel ready. And secretly, this usually happens to me with flying, because I tend to get anxious with flying. There's a lot of stories in my life around that. But what will happen is I'll get really anxious and the flight will get delayed for like 2 hours until I tire myself out and get into a surrender state, which I think is precisely what happened. Because as soon as I kind of was like, you know what, it is what it is, and I settled down a bit, the Wi-Fi decided to pop back on. So yeah, it definitely, yeah, it's the little nod that if you're not ready, you'll receive those delays until that perfect moment when you're ready and right. And yeah, I just think starting it in that moment would have turned out very different than starting and then the following. So the delay was very divine.
that's so intriguing. I love that you shared that experience about plane flights. You bringing that up actually reminds me of, I would almost say the magnetism and then the pushing away in life. You know, when you're in a more anxious, activated state and you're really wanting something, you keep pushing it away. And
Yeah.
when you're in more of a flow, relaxed, let's do this state, you just come together with whatever it is that you're seeking. Um, I recently went on a flight to Hawaii and something kind of similar happened. I was so in flow while I was waiting for the plane, and I was so like laid back. I was sitting like this, like listening to music, singing out loud in the waiting area that was packed with people. And I was like, I don't care. There's a lot of people. I'm going to Hawaii. And, just letting these kids sit next to me and be complete crazy wild children and just smiling at them. And then we finally get on the flight, and I'm so excited because I've never been to Hawaii. And I'm like, yes, I'm finally going. And then they had to do a repair, and it took like 25 minutes. And I was like, my flight was finally going to Hawaii, and I have to exercise patience now.
Oh, it's a big one. And I mean, we talk about that a lot, but it really is like, I really do believe it's that surrender and flow state that really magnetizes stuff to you. Because, yeah, you will tucker yourself out until you're truly ready to receive or ready to exert or ready to share. And yeah, it's really interesting when you change that frequency, how much stuff actually shifts.
Yeah, and you can completely change a situation just stepping back and be like, okay, let's take a breath. Let's see what's going on here. Um, Ironically, I was planning on doing a little bit of healing during our session to start us off. But when everything froze up and it shut down and you said, I don't know, I was a little anxious. I went ahead and I got my crystals out and I was like, okay, we're just gonna do this now.
They're like, we're just gonna work on it.
So, I may have done a little bit of aura sweeping, cutting of some cords for you so that we could come in here in a nice clear space together. Um, for those of you who don't know, I practice pranic healing, and cord cutting is removing just negative connections from all parts of your being, energetically. And we can have them with anybody. We can have them with loved ones. We can have them with people we don't even know. People can subconsciously create them. It's not something that's bad. But they can be really distracting sometimes. And just removing those and then clearing our auras can really give us more of a clear space to work from in our day-to-day life. And I intentionally do that throughout the day when I wake up, before I go to sleep. It makes such a huge difference. And being able to be in yourself rather than in these different states we're describing can make a huge difference. Like Brooke is showing up completely authentically herself and sharing these beautiful, beautiful bits.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah, it's very different. It's a very different state. Like creating from one versus the other is just night and day.
so you describe these different states. I recognize that you were in more of a corporate role and you
Mhm.
went to business school. Could you give more of an example of one state versus the other? Like more of, I guess, would you call it like the masculine versus the feminine?
Um, there's a lot of different states to be fair. I think what I'm kind of referring to in this moment is more so centered around when you're either in a nervous system activation state or if your nervous system is regulated, because those are two very, very different states. And then from there, when your nervous system is regulated, there's still a level of, I don't know, I think you relate to this where it's like when you are someone who is very empathic or you feel a lot of things and sometimes you get confused on what is yours versus what is not yours. And especially for me, I'm pretty much always surrounded to an extent around other people. And so innately, like what you were saying with cord cutting and things like that, creating that discernment and that space between, in a sense, you and others, just to make sure you're clear on what your energy is and what is not yours is really, really critical. So there's kind of a few different pieces, and then from then being in your energy, you can then be in many other states from there, or at least that's how I witnessed it. I can't swear. There's no science necessarily backing me. This is just what I experienced.
Thank you. Thank you for that clear, concise answer
Mm.
and to see it from your perspective. So in those states, you're anxious, you're calm. What's that next level?
I think there's like a spectrum, and then there's obviously so many feelings and emotions that can go on the spectrum. But I think you and I have talked a little bit about this in the past where it's like you can be in full nervous system activation. If you're in that state, it's really hard to tap into anything else. It's very cloudy in that state, and when you're anxious, things just don't usually move quite well. Like the Wi-Fi shutting out, things just they'll pause because you're being asked to slow down. And I have so many examples of where I've ignored this in my life and like so many stories for days where um when you're not listening in or you're not tuning in, things will either delay, slow down, you'll get rejection, like things like that will happen to attempt to get you to slow down. I like to call them universal two by fours, where you just get like, it starts with like that cute nudge, and then it starts going on from there. But yeah, after you can kind of get to a state where the nervous system is settled, you kind of then, like I was saying, move into that discernment of energy. So being able to be clear on what your energy is. And then once you're clear on what your energy is, you can start to experience it differently. I feel like that's where you can start to really tap in and hit into the different degrees of like, is there trauma there? What patterns exist? What thought patterns are in your mind? What beliefs exist? What lens are you looking at life through? And when you start to get clear on those things, which is your own stuff, right? After you can start getting more clarity on that, and it's constant, like we're never fully, you know what I mean? Like healing is a forever journey. Um, but once we're kind of clear on that part, or we start finding little moments in that and we start gaining more clarity, I feel like that's where we start finding more and more of that like pure essence and what you and I often like to refer to as like a flow state, where you start to like get really cozy with like your inner kid starts showing up and wanting to play more, and your inner child feels seen and feels heard, and you just you have this ability to be more seen, felt, heard, experienced in your pure, beautiful soul state. And I think that's like a whole nother degree. And we kind of move right through these. Like it's not, okay, check this box, check this box, check. No, like it's just a constant little ebb and flow, which yeah, we have to get comfortable with because I go through nervous system activation plenty of days, plenty of times, and then we kind of work our way back through each state. And I'm like, okay, why is my nervous system activated? What's creating that for me? And like sitting with, okay, what is this? And then how do I work through that? And what emotions come up? And does my inner kid feel safe? And then, yeah, you keep going through there, but it's not always so direct, but that's kind of how I view it.
Yeah, that's a really great way of describing it. And I appreciate your point of view and how you manage, I would say, kind of navigating it in the moment. I think that we all find different ways to navigate, and I've learned different tools over the years that work really well for me. And I'm sure that you've also found some tools that work really well for you to clear that space and allow for that flow. Uh, it seems though that there's also with with the flow state and with moving through those different states and getting into it, um, there are two paths. It's there. Okay, maybe it's more of a continuum. Maybe it's more of kind of a spectrum, like you said. But
No, I'm curious.
there's like you can go really far into the flow, and
Mm.
you can really work with the universe, you can start creating, you can start seeing the magic. Like I've been in conversations with you and I'm just like, oh, four-leaf clover. Just you can really get into it and you can start playing with it and having fun, like you said, the play. But there's also another side of it where there's more structure.
Mm.
So this is where I was kind of bringing up the feminine and the masculine earlier. So you disable the nervous system. You're in this place and you're able to find this place again because you found those tools that really work for you, right? Um, when you're in this space of making decisions or of creating, what amount of masculine and what amount of feminine really works most for you? And do you feel like you move between them? Do you feel like you'll get like more masculine for certain tasks, for certain duties, more feminine for certain tasks, certain duties? And where do you flow more naturally? Like which state allows you to be the most authentic version of you?
Yeah, I think that's a super solid question. I feel like it really is an ebb and flow. I feel like there's zero formula for any of this because every human is so unique and so incredibly beautiful and special in their own way. Like we all have our own kind of blueprint, right? Like, and it's just a balancing act. I think for me, this goes back to what I was kind of talking about with like you getting clear on yourself and then being with those thoughts, patterns, beliefs, because I've mentioned it to you in something that I think has been collectively up for grabs lately and up in the full collective is this balance between the feminine and masculine. And the way that it's been interestingly showing up both in my life and from what I've seen and heard others um, is really around this masculine overage. And so I love, like you coined a term, avoidant masculine. And then I just kind of ran wild from there with it. But I think it's one of those things where sometimes when we have certain patterning or we have certain beliefs, we're more like we almost have blinders on, like a horse, where we're like, well, this is how we have to do it. So, like, I was saying to you earlier, like when I was in college, I was like, you have to use Google Calendar, you have to structure your whole life. And that is what I was kind of taught was the right way to do it in big, big quotes, right? There's no right way to do anything. But that led me into then corporate, where again, we followed that really heavy masculine structure. And what I started learning was that the reason I really attracted that into my life and needed it was because I had a lot of wounded masculine patterning. So the state that I was living most of my life in was from a wounded masculine, even being in a feminine body, which is really kind of funny, but that's just to say, right? Like it doesn't matter your gender, we all have both like wounding, opportunity, love that we can provide to each part of us. A lot of my personal healing has been around finding that more deeper balance between the feminine and the masculine. And what I've started to learn and witness is that my greatest creations and flow do happen in a more feminine state, in the sense of being there's not a ton of structure. It can be wild and chaotic. I often view it as like this beautiful tornado. That's almost always how I reference it. But it's not a tornado in a destructive way. It's this tornado in creating this beauty. Like I don't know, sometimes I get funny imagery with it, but it's a beautiful way of showing up in a way that's just unique and different and pure and creative from my heart space. Um, but I think we were talking about this earlier, where it's nice to have kind of a combination. So being feminine, you know, you still in that feminine being need to feel a sense of safety, protection, security, stability, some more masculine grounded traits that allow us to really be in that flow state. And so I have had to find ways to create that for myself. Sometimes it looks like similar to you having like a little checklist or to-do list of things I desire to do but not giving myself any structure on when they happen or how they happen. So it's just, I'd like to make some content today. Okay, cool. And then we started talking about feminine consistency at one point too, which I really like that as a idea. But yeah, there's always an ebb and a flow and a balance, and it changes because we change every day. So
Could you share the definition roughly of what feminine consistency is that you
Yeah.
create?
Yeah, so my version of feminine consistency is basically the goal is to get 70%. So my goal is to, let's say, create content every day. Truly, that means that my 100% is my goal. But what feminine consistency allows me is spaciousness. So it allows me that extra 30% to say, you know what, if I hit 70% of the days, I have done the thing, I have hit it. Because, as women, we naturally flow and cycle, right? And guys do too, right? We have slightly different patterns of how we go through cycles, but naturally humans are cyclical, just like nature, which I love. And so I think it's beautiful to give yourself that space, whether you're in a feminine, masculine body, doesn't matter. Like you still deserve to have that. I just call it feminine consistency simply because I think it comes from a more feminine qualityed state because a lot of times what we've been taught in society, or at least me growing up, it was like discipline. You need to be disciplined. Every day you need to check everything off your box. You have to, you have to. And it took a long time to unwind, and I still am unwinding from that state and creating the space for myself. So I think feminine consistency is almost just a permission slip to say, if you've done 70%, you have done more than enough. And that is beautiful. Like I feel like in school we forget that C was passing. Like for me, C was a really bad grade and unacceptable in in my home or in my life, like I was unwilling to accept it. And so I'm starting to learn that 70% and a C is actually perfect. So we're actually just returning to where a C originally was maybe created.
Yeah, I think the years that we were in school, there was a lot of mindset around achievement, perfectionism.
So much.
Ugh.
A lot, yeah.
Like I feel it in my front solar plexus. I'm just like, ooh.
Oh, I felt it right up here. I was like, ooh, yeah.
And untraining that, it can take some work, and it seems like you found a really mindful approach that allows you to create, but to also have an amazing structure and drive.
The hope. Every day it's just toying with it and figuring out what works. And I think that's really where the sauce is like slowing down, listening to yourself. And the more you listen to self, the more you realize what works or what doesn't. And then you just give yourself the permission to keep on changing and improving and adjusting. And yeah, that's something I bring up a lot when I teach yoga is how we get the opportunity to like try a posture or try a bind or try moving your hand in a different way. And then if you don't like it, good. You made one decision, you realize whether it worked or not, and now you make a different decision.
Yeah. And you just go to your edge,
Yeah.
and it's all about finding that edge. Uh,
Yes.
I think this also happens a lot with making decisions and making those choices toward your conscious living and your path forward. So, um, on that note, I'd like to know, could you share a story of a turning point that transformed your path? Or maybe it is transforming your path. Maybe you're currently in it. I'd love to hear.
I think there are so many of those. Like I was saying earlier, universal 2x4s. I did a really not so great job of listening before, which I think is why it's so critical in my life now. Because all throughout college, I had this story has been brought up a few times lately, but I had three concussions in a singular year time span in college, like when I was in university. And I swear to you, those concussions were really trying to wake me up. And I just refused to listen. And so I think, as you know, the year of 2021 was really we'll say some people refer to it as like spiritual awakening or stuff like that, whatever term we want to use. Um, but yeah, in 2021, I went through a lot of grief and loss. And that year completely changed, completely shaped my life in a way I could not have imagined. So, in March, I lost my grandfather. In June, I lost my father. In September, I moved to the great state of Indiana where I met you. But in a 6 month period, I lost two of the most important men in my life, in a very difficult way, and then moved to a state where I had zero support system. And this part of my journey, like the 2021 story doesn't end there. There was other stuff, but what I'm also learning is that, it's great to honor these stories, but I no longer desire to like live in them and make them like almost like a part of identity, if that makes sense. Like they will forever be a part of who I am, but I'm learning how to also honor the old stories, but also find the wisdom and like allow that to be what I carry forward. But really, what I gained from that year and what I learned from those losses and what they really showed me in life is a few major life lessons. One being life is extremely short, extremely precious, and I wasn't going to sit around anymore for very much longer and just, let life pass me by. So it was a really gigantic wake up call. Two, it definitely taught me that I can, like, I don't need to work towards a goal that may never exist. So, for instance, my father passed away before retirement age, which in the US is typically right around 65, and my dad passed before then. And so, what it really showed me in that moment is, oh my God, I could work all these years and never get what they consider to be the payoff in our society of like, oh, I've retired. Now I get to like enjoy and live life. And so I think that there was a few really critical lessons that those experiences taught me. Of course, they taught me lessons in gratitude. I would write in a gratitude journal every day, despite what was happening in my life. There was always something to be grateful for, it sounds crazy, but it's true. Um, and it also just showed me how incredibly strong I am. It takes a shit ton to break me as a human. Pardon my bad language. I do curse. That is part of me, but
I think it's
I
acceptable.
it is. Some people don't like it though, so I recognize that. And it's not everyone's cup of tea, which is valid as well. But yeah, it taught me that I'm really strong. And I think that journey of really, I fell into a really deep depression and really, really struggled to a point that I didn't know if I could dig myself out of the hole in the tunnel that I was in. It was really, really difficult. Um, but what that really showed me was one, not only that tenacity, strength, persistence, and just starting to love yourself just the tiniest little baby bite by baby bite every day, like it'll slowly transform you and slowly heal you. And that's where consistency is always more important than some giant leap. Like it's just creating those small little moments. And yeah, I think those moments really transformed and shaped my life. Now, almost 4 years later, I quit corporate. I've started traveling. I get to teach yoga in beautiful places and share what I love with other humans. And I think that's the thing where it's like I'm never gonna pretend like I've made something. I don't know, like I don't think there's ever a top of the hill. I think you're always just building and like growing. But I think by the standards of where I was, I get to at least choose my joy a little bit more every day. And to me, that's really what it's about. So, yeah, that was very transformative in my life. Long-winded, but I think that answers hopefully some of the
That
question.
that is a really, really, really beautiful, beautiful answer. And I just want to hold space for all the transformation that you went through and the integration.
Oh, yeah.
That is huge. All that you experienced and learned and transformed into your life. It's incredible.
Thank
You
you.
you grew so much through it, and I can see it in your being now compared to when I met you.
Oh,
And
God, yeah.
big shifts. Um, but also just how you hold yourself and how you share about it.
Yeah.
I can really see how it's shaped your life and it's allowing you to show that to other people. One thing that really stands out to me is that you were talking about your father not making it to retirement age. And
Mm.
again, there's this masculine structure, this expectation, this like binding contract that we retire at this age, and that's when we enjoy.
Yeah.
And you have found this enjoyment in your 20s.
Hopefully, yeah, to some degree. I don't know if you've seen this. There is a secret trend going around about, I think it's Gen Z starting it, which I technically fall under the Gen Z, although I joke that I don't know if they'd accept me because I do wear skinny jeans and have a side part. But yeah, Gen Z's started coining this term around like mini retirements, where like at some point you just kind of quit and take a year or two off and then like go back to work, which I think is really interesting. And I'm curious to see in like another maybe like 5 or 10 years from now, like what we'll say normal because there is no such thing, but what that looks like. Like, is the typical career path really continuing or yeah, I don't know. I'm really curious for how that shapes up, but I do like that. I do like that that's a thing because I don't think we should wait or put stuff off because tomorrow is never guaranteed.
It is never guaranteed. That's so true. And with you sharing that, I'd like to know what specifically inspirations, teachings, books, ex I know you had experiences, influenced you on this journey, like influenced your path.
Yes, this is a fun one because I always joke that I don't know, I used to feel really insecure about it. Like probably around like a year and a half ago, I went to Peru and I felt like secretly such a fraud. Like, when we talk about imposter syndrome, but I'm like, oh, I teach yoga, but I'm like in this place where everyone like, I don't know, like I just didn't feel like I was for some reason good enough to be in the same room. And it was really funny because what would happen is people would reflect that to me, right? Like you're going to receive that in reflection. And because I felt insecure, I would start getting commentary around, this is always the example that comes to mind. And I know you've definitely had to have heard it before, but people would always be like, oh my God, you haven't read the Four Agreements? Like you haven't read this book. And that was always the judgment that I would receive. And what I started to learn and accept about myself is that I, like every single person, have a different way of learning. So every single human learns differently. So I always like to say I'm maybe not the well-read, whatever, but the way that I tend to learn is through both other human beings, like just creating like in that space, to a beautiful human that was an absolute gift to me. I have someone who literally like a month after my dad passed away, I started seeing and working with her. For some reason, the normal route of like therapy did not appeal to me. There's definitely some stories and stuff around that that are from other experiences, but I just didn't feel drawn to it. I didn't think regular therapy would really help me through the experience I was going through. And so I started working with an energy healer who is just incredibly amazing. And nearly 4 years later, I actually still work with her, but it's incredible how much she has taught me. So I definitely owe a massive thank you to her, which she knows. And I always express gratitude to her because she is absolutely phenomenal and incredible. And I also think just having other people in my life that serve as guides. Other than that, I also really recognize that a lot of it just comes through, as people like to call it, downloads or intuition. Because I've experienced a lot of death, I often will receive a lot of interesting support in ways that maybe not, like, we'll say, are not normally accepted by society, we'll say. But yeah, am, I don't know. I hate titles and things like that, but I hear things, see things, feel things, experience things. And I think that that is usually my greatest teacher is just honestly lived experience and just trying to go through those moments and really sit with self and hear what comes through and just allow the space to be. So I don't know if that's a great answer, but I think finding the right people to like support you in whatever the process is that you're going through is so critically important. I also do secretly like love watching YouTube. I love listening to podcasts as well. So I think that's probably the medium in which I like learning. Um, but yeah, I like to diversify and just listen to beautiful voices who have something beautiful to share and to just be raw and honest and authentic. And, I think that's both of our goals is to hopefully show up in that way.
Yeah, always
Yeah.
is my rawest self.
Yes. And you're incredibly natural at it. I have to always tell you that. You're just so natural at it.
Well, thank you. So well received.
I'm glad.
You are too. And like you've said, you mirror it. And
Mm.
as you start doing the work, I've recognized that you really start to see what it is that you're seeking because it is seeking you. And
Yeah.
once you work past those different blocks, those triggers, the programming that you've been through, and you really, really start to open up to incredible possibilities. And
I always say endless.
I don't think that we got as close until probably what was it, like the last year or so, when
Yeah.
we both have come into our power more.
Yeah, it's been funny watching our relationship transform because I always feel like you were a big catalyst for me, which I think is important to like always acknowledge and reflect too. Because I remember being in yoga teacher training with you, and meditation was still a pretty like decently foreign concept to me. And not a lot of I did not feel comfortable nor allow for a lot of the gifts that I had to really come through at that point. There was little moments and glimpses of them, but I really was very scared of them without knowing, obviously. Like I just unknowingly was terrified. But I remember we were doing our yoga teacher training class on meditation. And I was so glad that you were before me because I remember you being like, I saw this and that and colors and I felt this and like your experience, like every other person was just kind of like, yeah, it felt nice. And you were like, no, I like absolutely tripped out over there. And I was like, oh, okay, I'm not the only one. Like, great. And so I remember like you gave me the guts to share and to like actually start sharing myself, which I really also feel like you're doing in this moment too. So I always have to thank you because you're a secret catalyst in my life. And it's like really cool to have people like that. Like that is such a gift. And like, oh, you're incredible. And I love the way that we get to share, the way that we understand like what we're flowing through. And you and I both shared this, but there was, I don't know, I don't know, a few weeks ago, a month ago, something like that, where we were sharing that we had both set an intention to like call in deeper aligned friendships and relationships. And like it was so funny because in that exact timeline, both of us felt that deepening in our relationship. And I just think that's so special when two people set such strong intentions and then are met with so much like just love. And yeah, just, I'm forever grateful for you.
Energetically hugging you right now.
I know. I like want to cry. I like adore you so much.
I adore you too.
Oh.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Uh, so with that being said, I would love it if you could share a piece of advice for listeners who are at the start of their magical or transformative journey. Maybe they're at that place where you were at the beginning of like YTT, even when
Yeah.
you aren't even aware of the things that are going on around you and you're uncomfortable and you don't even know what you're uncomfortable with. But you're exploring this. What would you share with them? One piece of advice.
I think just to know that it's okay not to know. Like, it is totally okay not to know. I think for some reason, as humans, we like to think other people have it figured out and we somehow don't. But the secret of life is that actually no one has it figured out, and we're all just flying by the seam of our pants all the time. And I think the beauty is, again, just slowing down and getting sure and more sure of yourself and tuning out everybody else and starting to create an inner knowing, because that inner knowing is what feels like that knowledge that we're all seeking. but we still all secretly have no idea. But we want to know who we are. And I think that's actually what it is just getting cozy and comfy with self. So I would say tangibly the best things to do are to find your form of meditation. It doesn't have to be sitting down still. It can be biking, listening to music, dancing, anything. It could be journaling. It could be sharing in good company, having someone who you can just really be authentic with, just finding yourself little by little. I think that's really what I wish I knew at that time is like just slow down, just keep slowing down, and it'll somehow all make more sense in that way.
Yes. That's a really good reflection, and it reminds me of my journey and how it all began. And journaling has always been so deep for me. I think the best part about journaling is taking the time to reread and review and recall what you've been through. I read journal entries and I'm just shocked.
It is incredible what you will pour out on a page. Yes.
Like,
The notes section of my phone looks insane because when I was in corporate, I would just journal in the notes section of my phone, and there's probably 800 notes that are all like so chaotic.
and you can even see how your consciousness changes. And
Yeah.
again, nobody's perfect, nobody knows all the answers, but the beauty of it is you can reflect and you can see you and you can see where you've been and where you're going. And
Yeah.
I think that sense of presence and knowing yourself really, really can help you find stability.
Mm. Oh,
And
yeah. I do feel like when you were saying that, the thing that kept coming to mind is like your journal is almost like a compass because it kind of shows you, or maybe not a compass, more like a paper map where it like shows you where you've been, where you're going, like, and it gives you that opportunity to just kind of, I don't know, yeah, be present with self and to see that full journey. So it is really cool. I am traveling, so I don't have all my journals with me, but in the past, when I've always looked back, even if it was just a month of time, it is also like night and day. So I do feel you, and I think it's incredible to reflect and reread.
thank you.
Yeah.
So I'm considering your future visions. What is your next big aspiration in your journey, in your shaping of this beautiful life?
Yeah, well, that's a good question. Um, I would say right now I am on arguably like, and I think collectively we all are on like a bit of a precipice where we're all looking to take a little bit of a courageous leap, but one that feels still safe and stable, but good. So I'm looking at, where I'm going next on Earth, and also kind of surrendering that it'll be good wherever I end up and I'm going to make it what it is, not the place. Sometimes when we're nomadic or travelers, as I am, we get so caught up in like, but I could go this place, and the world is my oyster, and you just get like decision overload and overwhelm. And sometimes it's like, just pick a place, like just pick the next one, you're fine. Like just pick, which is like, oh my God, such a terrible problem to have, right? Um, so there's that. So I've chosen a place to kind of settle for, another few months and just really sit. And in this time frame, my goal is to really focus on myself and what I'm building. And really, I think what I always hear when I listen into like what is my mission, my purpose on this earth, it's always to save lives. And no, I will not be a doctor. I absolutely do not. I get heebie-jeebies on stuff. I'm so not equipped for that. But my purpose is, I think, really to one, like share my story authentically to both let other people know like you're not alone, and two, to show how we can make these like little baby steps and changes together and just start like we're all just walking hand in hand together to figure it out. Like seriously. And so my goal is to really keep sharing authentically on the different social media accounts that I have and to really, I don't know, just in a sense, find my community and my tribe of people, you definitely being one of them, and just to keep continuing to uplift each other and the world at large, just because when you uplift another human or yourself, you naturally raise it. So I love that. And I think that's really what I'm working on in this chapter of life.
That that is a really big feat.
Yeah.
It is. And I would compare it, to the responsibility of any professional. You
Yeah.
are digging in deep and helping people trudge through the mud and, polish their shoes off and see what's underneath. It's it's deep work.
Mm.
What do you do, professionally in that arena? I know that you teach yoga, you have a YouTube channel, and you like to share some inspiring videos.
Yeah. Yeah. So in that arena, I finally got the guts to make a TikTok as well. So I have TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube. Right now, in the time that I'm at, I've really put more of a focus on shorts and creating that more inspired content, but I'm excited to get back into long form, and this is a really fun way to do it. So I'm like at Brooke Chooses Life on all of those. So that's one capacity in which I share. I also facilitate both yoga and breath work, so getting to share what I love with other people and help people kind of come back in and slow down a little bit in a space that feels safe. Really, I view my job as to just hold a beautiful space so that people feel good, safe, and can do whatever they need. Because we all have the answers within, no one has them for us. So yeah, my goal is just to support other beings in that beautiful part of life.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing, Brooke.
Yeah.
Thank you for all of your incredible insights, your inspiring journey. It's been such a gift to have you today, and really, really looking forward to future connections, future collaborations, and watching your journey unfold, sharing it
Oh,
with you. Thank you so
the
much.
same right back to you. Such a beautiful reflection. I'm so grateful for you. And I cannot wait to see the way that you get to transform so many beautiful lives just because of who you are and the gifts that you have.
Mm, the same to you.
I wish I could give you a hug.
I know. One day we'll be in person, we'll
I
record.
know.
So I do want to hold this space. It feels very serene, very quiet together here as we're closing. And I just want to close our eyes. And those who are listening, if you want to, you can also close your eyes with us and hold this space together. And I just want you to take a deep breath and sigh it out through your mouth. Notice where your breath is. Are you breathing into your chest, into your belly? Bring your breath down into your belly. And allow the belly to fill all the way up. Allow it to fill up all the way through the chest, feeling the shoulders rise, inhaling. And as you exhale, slowly deflate from the top all the way down to the bottom, allowing the lungs to deflate all the way. You can continue this breath a couple of times. And with this presence, I want you to recognize the silence and the stillness that we're holding together. The interconnection that we all share. Recognize the peace and the serenity. It is all within you. You can access this at any point in time. This is yours. You create. Now, if you've closed your eyes, slowly begin to open them. Coming back to this physical space together. Thank you. Thank you so much, Brooke.
Thank you, Samie. You're so special.
You are so special too, and it's a privilege. It is an honor to be in this space with you.
The same right back.
Oh. With that, we will close. Thank you for tuning in to See Blissfully Lit. I will share Brooke's social links below. I'd love to have you connect with her. And we will hopefully see you again sometime soon and get some updates on your beautiful journey.
Oh, thank you, Samie.
Thank you. Mm-hmm.